Hello everybody, it is November 4th, 2022. Let's take a look at Bitcoin's action, and the summary I put out on Monday had basically made things more complex. We did hit, last weekend we hit that 21.1 area that I wanted to see, but then we went deeper than we should have, and so I was looking for a retest of 20k, give or take, in pretty much any of these scenarios. So green path, we might be resetting the green circle 4 of 3. That's going to test 20k. Blue path might be a diagonal. Should test the bottom of the channel. That was currently like 19.5 when I put the video out, but started heading upwards a little bit throughout the week. And then the red path would be what happens if that channel breaks. If 19.5 breaks, we'd be going to that sub 17.8. So obviously that's out, at least in the immediate scenarios that we're looking at here. And so the question is, are we in green or are we in blue, or in a more complex bearish pattern? That is still possible. So let's go over those, and we'll go from there. So obviously we've seen some really nice pumping action yesterday and today. So a good way to finish off the week here for Bitcoin. We broke out to new local highs here, also a good sign. All right, so we'll start with the most bullish scenario. I am not fully convinced that this is still valid, because usually if you see first wave and then a really drawn out deep second wave, we would tend to see third, a short fourth, and then a nice big fifth up from there. Because of how drawn out this is, kind of matching what the second wave had done there, it makes it look a lot more like a diagonal instead. Now that being said, technically the fib levels in the macro sense are still holding, like this going to the 1, 2, 3, 6 for 3 of 3 in the green count here, and then pulling back to the 764, which it did twice, touch there again. That is completely legitimate as far as those fib levels go. Hasn't broken anything yet. So if we get to 5 of 3, which is that 21.7 area, 21.6 to 21.7, that's this box right here. If we get there and then correctively pull back to about 20.5, which is this level right here, and then head up here, that green path can still be active. Now the problem is, for clarity's sake, both the green path and the blue path pretty much overlap, right? So we're either going to get this, or we're going to get this fifth wave up in blue, and then basically instead of holding this 20.5 level, we'll see it break down instead. Either way, it's still potentially bullish, right? Because the blue path is 1, 2, that 1 and 2 are the same. This, instead of being 3 of 3, is just the end of a third wave in a diagonal, which oftentimes targets this area right here, which is a little lower than an impulsive 3. You'd normally see it come down all the way to the channel, but it doesn't have to. It got pretty close. So even though it didn't touch that, it's still technically valid that could still be a diagonal. So we really don't have answers quite yet on that question. But in any case, we should be heading up here to near this diagonal line. So that may mean that we just top out there, or we may go a little further. We might actually touch the blue line. Doesn't really matter, doesn't have to touch it, but somewhere in that red box to finish this off. And then, as I said, we would have a pullback from there. Now, this being a 5-wave diagonal, it's likely that the next pullback is going to be deep. Diagonals typically end up with deep pullbacks. But at a minimum, I would say we're going to come back down and retest this 20k area where this previous 4 went. So, realistically, this area right here is going to be the deciding factor between blue and green. And then we do still have to worry a little bit. I'm a little less worried about it now, but we do still have to worry about this being corrective action in this yellow scenario, where everything from here is just a large correction, W, X, and Y. Now this was the main danger zone here, and we did break above it today, right? So that's why I said I'm a little less worried about that one now. But technically, because this has been quite choppy, it is still a possibility. And if that is correct, not only will we fail to hold for this green wave 4, but instead of doing a 3-wave move down and kind of holding that, maybe 19.5 to 20k area, we'll make 5 waves instead. And if we make 5 waves instead, then we are heading down to new lows. Whether or not those new lows are just this area here that I was looking for, or the start of a much more bearish move, remains to be seen. But until something actually happens to tell me something more bearish is on the table, my main thought is that the bottom is still in. Either the bottom was in here, or we can get down into this green box here, and bottom can be in from there. We can try again, and as long as we're above 15.7, the bull market is still alive for a move to over 100k. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Let me see here. Let me just kind of mark this a little bit better here. That's 4 there with that low that we made in the green scenario, or potentially 4 in the blue scenario. Okay, and then it's hard to say. This is the other thing leaning towards this area here. Let me show you this. If this is a diagonal, we would expect it to be 3 waves instead of 5, and clearly this is not impulsive. All right, let me get rid of this little danger zone here. That question has now been answered, which is cool. So I'll get rid of that. And what I see is A and B, and we're likely in a C wave. So let us just put on the target for that as well. And then let me show you one more thing that I like to look at with diagonals as well. So if that's our A and our B, of blue 5, basically, it looks like 21.9 is the target for that. So it doesn't have to be 21.9, but that's the 1.0 extension. We've got the 1.236. It could technically go as high as that. That's 22.3, and it could be already topped just barely right now at 21.473. That's the 618. Anywhere in here is the larger zone for this to be an ABC up. Let me make this blue, and we'll drop that there. Okay, so within blue scenarios wave 5, that's what I'm looking for. It could just end right here at 21.7. That matches up with the fibs. We've got the 764 fib there of this ABC extension. The 1.0 extension, as I said, is about 21.9. So anyway, my leverage longs, I'm going to be taking profits pretty much between 21.7 and 21.9. If it goes up beyond that, that's fine. It can go up to 22.3 or so, but I will still expect a pullback after that. All right, so I think that's where we're headed. Probably still need to head up a little bit higher into this box. Let me take a look down here. This being a C wave, there's A, there's B, we're working on C. Okay, so I would say that's our micro 1-2, and we should see five waves within this, so we may be able to determine where this should go even a little bit better. All right, so far this looks like a semi-decent 1-2, and then we've got a micro 1-2 right there, 618 to 382 move. That looks pretty good. Probably going to correct downwards just a tad more to about 21.286 to fill in this little micro ABC. But assuming we hold above, about 21K, 21.1, something like that, We can begin proceeding upwards in this 5-wave move. This should then take us to 3 of 3s there, 4 of 3, 5 of 3, then 4th wave down, and then 5th wave up. So this says basically 22 based on this projection. If we hold above 21, let's call it 21.1. If it holds above 21.1, this projection is valid to about 22k, maybe 22 to 22.2, somewhere in that region is kind of the expectation based on the micro action right now. So let us put that on as well and see if that can play out. And that'll be within C5. Make this blue and even smaller. Okay. I think that's the most reasonable expectation that I have for it right now based on the micro action. That looks really valid. Now, could we see this turn into an expanded flat correction and then go up from there? Yes, we could. I would prefer the more direct route, but you really never know, especially with the weekend here. Low liquidity can certainly lead to that sort of chop, and crypto has really liked doing that recently. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's not necessarily a bearish thing to retest these levels here, but I wouldn't want to break down below this little wick, probably down below 20,350, give or take. That would likely say to me that that we're done with this. That we're done with this move, and this, we're not going to get an expanded flat, basically. But above that, it is still possible. Even if it comes down, it could then press up from there. All right, last thing I want to go over. Again, kind of rule of thumb with diagonals. Often we find that the 5th wave equals the 1st wave. And so if we do that, we say here's our 1st wave, went to about there, and our 4th wave ended here. That gives us a target for the 5th wave of 21.9. Okay, so we've got lots of confluence sort of in anywhere in that 21.7 to 22.1, give or take, range, with 21.9 kind of being the midpoint of that. It's the same length as the 1st wave. So lots of confluence in that area. And I am going to expect a pullback from that area. So if you're in longs, I would be careful, starting there. I'm certainly taking my leverage long profit there. And then we'll go from there. And we'll see if we can maintain a bullish structure by doing a 3-wave pullback after that. All right, guys, that is all I've got for you. I will talk to you all on Monday. Have a great weekend, and stay safe as Bitcoin approaches that red box there.